Today, I feel an overwhelming urge to share the tale of my own demise. Now, let me assure you, despite this ghastly declaration, I am not penning this from beyond the grave. By most metrics, I seem just as alive as you or anyone else you'd pass by. However, there's an oddity. 4 of my teeth, too impeccably fashioned, are unnervingly sharper than any human's ought to be. I'm stationed in a quaint tech startup, nestled in a coastal town somewhere north of California. I shan't get too specific, lest my tale lead some dark fortune back to me. It isn't the most comforting of jobs, what with the relentless deadlines and coerced after-hours with colleagues. Yet, the pay compensates well for the hours I pour in. There's a peculiar loneliness to my life, intensified by the physical and emotional distance between my family and me, who reside an ocean away. Childhood friends, college comrades, and even acquaintances from my tabletop games, all have faded into the backdrop. It isn't that I'm antisocial. Attachments simply don't latch onto me quite as they should. My life, one could argue, is undeniably monotonous. I work, I indulge in some online gaming, lose myself in a book or two, and then it's lights out. But the strangest thing about my existence, my digital footprint is minuscule, almost non-existent, and in the real world, even less so. Reflecting upon recent events, I believe that someone, or rather something, was very much aware of my inconspicuous life. The peculiarities were there: an unfamiliar car with windows veiled in black tint, the restless sound of the elevator making its rounds, and the unsettling flicker of my balcony light. My life's finale played out with these clues all around, and yet I remained blissfully unaware. Perhaps it was fate, or just my sheer bad luck. By the time realization dawned, I was already in the jaws of death, serving as a mere morsel to an expert predator. The oddity of a death such as mine is that you're the last to know. The sensation of my lifeblood ebbing away was bizarrely warm, unlike any human wound I've known. And so, when my alarm cried out its shrill wake-up call at 5 in the morning, the comfort I felt was unparalleled. I reached out, seeking the respite of a few more minutes, only to be jolted into a horrific reality. I couldn't see. An overwhelming whiteness blanketed my vision, with a pounding headache threatening to overshadow the searing pain clawing at my face. Panicked, I shot upright, stifling a scream. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, 2 haunting sights greeted me. My once white pillow now drenched in a shade of scarlet and, worse still, the very agent of my agonizing pain. The morning rays seeped through my blinds, their luminosity usually a welcome sight. But today, it only served as a grim reminder. Vampire folklore and tales of olden days have often depicted sunlight as a deadly foe, and in my new state, I felt an inherent dread towards it. The pervasive cultural tales of bloodsuckers, although taken lightly, suddenly held gravity. No disease or intoxication could replicate the effects I was experiencing. Ironically, the gravity of the situation was yet to truly dawn on me. Despite the revelation, my initial steps bordered on absurd normalcy. Venturing into my kitchen, I attempted breakfast. Every morsel, however, seemed like a mockery of its usual self. The butter smeared over my toast felt like adhesive. Bacon, once crispy and aromatic, was now akin to chewing on a lifeless piece of rubber. The usually refreshing orange juice neither invigorated nor satiated. Anxious, I sampled different foods, desperately hoping for this to be a passing oddity. The realization of my transformation was overwhelming, and when the urge to vomit arose, it was met with a peculiar stillness within my gut. Do vampires even possess stomach acids? My bodily functions were eerily silent. Continuing my bout of denial, I flung open a cupboard, only to be knocked sideways by the pungent smell of garlic. Quickly, with trembling hands, I bundled the offending item, rolling it into a garbage bag, and discarded it onto the balcony. The feeling of utter displacement hit me then, and the only semblance of normalcy I felt was when tears stained my face. It's jarring to feel such drastic changes in such a short time. My livelihood, once rooted in a 9-to-5, now seemed trivial. Daylight, once a beacon of hope, now a potential death sentence. Despite the sun's inherent danger, there's an instinctual part of me that craves the sanctuary of darkness. It beckons, promising solace in the moon's silver glow and the melancholic songs of wolves. But with this new existence comes a dilemma of morals. A latent thirst clawed at me, not for water or wine, but for something more primal. I've always perceived myself as fairly neutral, neither saintly nor malevolent. I've offered assistance to lost souls on streets, never raised my hand against creatures, and certainly never claimed a life. But now, the predator within me arose. A simple glance at reddish hues on my computer screen, or the unintentional bite of my lip, tasting the rich iron tang, only intensified my hunger. Yet, the daunting truth stands. To survive, one has to feed, and though the predator within me yearns to hunt, my humanity dreads the very thought. My attacker, the original vampire, clearly knew what they were doing. If it weren't for my newfound abilities, I'd be none the wiser about their clandestine entry into my sanctuary. In the depth of my newfound torment, an overwhelming aspect isn't the predatory instincts, or the weight of the morbid transformation, but the profound guilt at the thought of taking another's life. The sheer terror of causing someone the suffering I am experiencing is debilitating. Would it be easier, then, to succumb to the sunlight and end this tragic saga? It seems almost poetic, but there's a hitch. Lila. She's my living testament to love, the feline embodiment of my affections and my tether to humanity. For some, a pet is just a part of their life, but to Lila, I am her entire world. Our bond is symbiotic. I am her guardian, and she, my gentle reminder of the world I once inhabited. Lila, with her delicate mannerisms, has been my steadfast companion from the time I discovered her trapped between two eateries, her young, innocent eyes gleaming in the urban wilderness. Despite the surroundings, all hard concrete and bricked pathways, she was a beacon of vulnerability, beckoning me to become her savior. Without a second thought, I cradled this tiny creature, shielding her from the cold, inhospitable world and the lashing rain. The journey to pet parenthood was an uncertain one, riddled with doubts and insecurities. The initial days were a testament to trial and error, a voyage into the unknown as I scurried to provide her with food and warmth. Through all the struggles, the bond we forged became our anchor. Lila, with her skittish nature, has always been wary of strangers. The mere presence of unfamiliar faces sends her into hiding, a clear testament to the depth of trust she has bestowed upon me and the profound trauma of her early days. As I pen down these words, enveloped by the shroud of night, she sits beside me, her soft purring a harmonious tune in stark contrast to the tempest raging within me. Questions whirl in my mind. How does this vampire lore truly work? Does every individual I bite transform, or is it the act of killing that bestows this dark gift? Are there supernatural powers waiting to be unearthed, or must I rely solely on my new physical attributes and knowledge? Despite the uncertainty, one thing stands crystal clear. If there's even the slightest possibility of my premature demise, be it at the hands of law enforcement, a stray bullet, or even the legendary vampire hunter, the ramifications on Lila would be catastrophic. Her world would crumble, shrouded in loneliness and grief. To safeguard that world, if I must tread on the path of darkness, extracting life essence from the unsuspecting, then so be it. It's a haunting melody that resonates within me, a song of sacrifice and love for Lila. Every night was a challenge, the need to feed, the battle with morality, and the constant danger of exposure. As weeks turned into months, I honed my skills, always cautious to not harm anyone beyond repair. I became a silent shadow, drifting between alleyways, my victims waking up with a mere sensation of a bad dream, never truly realizing the close encounter they had with the supernatural. However, the supernatural world, it seems, had its own ways of communicating. Word spread quickly of a new vampire in town, one who was elusive, different from the rest. One night, as I perched on a rooftop overlooking the city, a crossbow bolt whizzed past my ear, embedding itself into the brick wall behind me. I turned swiftly to see a silhouette against the moonlight. A woman, her long hair flowing freely, eyes fixed on me, crossbow poised for another shot. Ilara, as I would come to know her, was a seasoned vampire hunter, belonging to a lineage that had been hunting my kind for centuries. But she didn't kill me. Instead, she approached with a proposal, one I wasn't expecting. She had been tracking a rogue group of vampires, ones who were causing chaos, wreaking havoc, and defying all unspoken rules of the underworld. "You're not like them," she said, lowering her weapon, her voice laced with both conviction and a hint of curiosity. "I can use someone like you. Together, we can rid this city of those monsters." Conflicted yet intrigued, I decided to join her. She had resources, knowledge of the undead, and a network of allies. In her company, I learned more about my own abilities and the world I had unwillingly stepped into. Our nights were filled with high-speed chases, confrontations, and strategies. The line between hunter and hunted began to blur. As days went by, our relationship transformed. We went from reluctant allies to trusted companions. She introduced me to others in her network, witches, werewolves, and even humans who were dedicated to preserving the balance of the supernatural world. However, as we ventured deeper into the city's underbelly, secrets began to unravel. The rogue vampires were not acting on their own accord. They were mere puppets in a grander scheme, orchestrated by an ancient vampire, a sire with immense power and control, seeking to dominate both the human and supernatural realms. To counter this, Alara and I had to strategize, to rally forces and forge alliances. In our quest, I discovered that the very vampire responsible for my transformation was part of this rogue group. The revelation added layers to our mission, personal vendettas intertwined with the greater good. Nights became a blur of battles, ambushes, and subterfuge. And amidst all this chaos, as the city lights shimmered below, I often found solace in the thought of Lila. Her purring, the way she'd nestle against me, became my sanctuary. The world outside was rife with danger, but I was determined to protect my little haven, even if it meant walking alongside a hunter. With Alara by my side, and the haunting melody of love and sacrifice for Lila guiding me, I stepped forth, ready to confront my sire and rewrite the fate of our city. The shadows of the night hid many tales, and ours was just one among them, a tale of a hunter and a vampire united against darkness. The ancient vampire, known as the Sire of Shadows, resided in an old cathedral, which had long been abandoned by the human populace, and now stood as a haunting monument to times long past. Its spires seemed to scrape the night sky, and the desolate beauty of the structure masked the dark intentions of its inhabitants. One evening, as I was feeding, discreetly taking just enough to sustain myself, I felt a sudden pull, an undeniable compulsion drawing me towards the cathedral. It was as if an unseen force wanted me there, and my newly acquired vampire instincts reacted with both fear and intrigue. Alara sensed it too. We had become so synchronized in our pursuits that even without speaking, she could gauge the unease in my demeanor. "He's calling you," she whispered, her fingers tracing the old scars on my neck, evidence of the night my life had changed forever. "The sire wants to meet his offspring." Venturing towards the cathedral, Alara and I devised a plan. We would meet the ancient vampire, but on our terms. With the help of Alara's allies, we prepared a concoction using witchcraft and alchemy that would temporarily dampen my connection to the sire, making it harder for him to manipulate or control me. I carried a vial of this potion around my neck, a beacon of hope amidst uncertainty. The cathedral loomed large as we approached, the moonlight casting eerie reflections on its stained glass windows. We were greeted by a cadre of rogue vampires, their eyes void of humanity, serving only the will of their master. Alara's crossbow gleamed menacingly in the dim light, and we pressed on, our resolve unwavering. Deep within, in a chamber shrouded in darkness and lit by candles, we encountered him. The Sire of Shadows was not as I had imagined. He bore the elegance of royalty, with an agelessness that was both captivating and terrifying. "Welcome, child," he murmured, his voice echoing through the vastness of the chamber. "You've kept me waiting." The conversation that followed was a dance of wits and intentions. He spoke of a new world order, where vampires would no longer lurk in the shadows but reign supreme, with humans serving as mere sustenance. Alara, with her unwavering spirit, challenged him at every turn, questioning his intentions and highlighting the harmony that once existed between our realms. But as words were exchanged, I felt the pull again, stronger this time. The sire was trying to breach the barrier the potion had erected. Sweat beaded my forehead, and I clutched the vial tightly. Time seemed to slow, and in that moment of vulnerability, the chamber erupted into chaos. The rogue vampires lunged at us. Elara, always a step ahead, unleashed a barrage of arrows, each finding its mark. The room became a whirlwind of action, with shadows dancing menacingly. In the midst of the melee, the sire advanced towards me, his intent clear. However, our preparation and unity proved to be our strength. With a coordinated effort, and aided by the protective enchantments Elara had placed around us, we managed to corner the sire. It was in that final confrontation that I had to make a choice: to end the legacy of the one who had thrust me into this life of darkness, or seek a different resolution. With Lila's image flashing before my eyes and Elara's unwavering support, I chose a path that neither of us had anticipated. Instead of destroying the sire, we bound him, using ancient rituals and spells, condemning him to an eternal slumber, never to awaken and wreak havoc again. The cathedral, once a place of darkness, became a prison for the Sire of Shadows, and the balance between our worlds was restored. Elara and I, our bond strengthened by the challenges we had faced, returned to our lives, forever changed, yet hopeful for a harmonious future. And through it all, Lila remained my anchor, a constant reminder of the humanity that still resided within me.